Quebec is a province where history clings to every stone, where French colonial elegance collides with centuries of war, revolution, and sorrow. Its castles and chateaux are not just monuments. They are silent witnesses to tragedies, betrayals, and whispers that never faded. Tonight, we will wander through Quebec's most haunted fortresses and stately homes, where the walls remember more than they should. Step carefully, because once you enter these castles, the echoes may follow you back into the night. Chateau Frontenac, Quebec City. Perched high above the St. Lawrence River, the Chateau Frontenac looks more like a fairy tale fortress than a hotel. But behind its gleaming towers and copper rooftops, guests have told stories that feel more like nightmares than dreams. Built in 1893, the Frontenac quickly became one of the most famous hotels in Canada. Politicians, royalty, and stars of the stage walked its halls. But one figure seems to have stayed long past his lifetime, Louis de Boisde, the Count of Frontenac, for whom the castle is named. He died in 1698, long before the hotel existed, yet guests and staff swear they've seen him wandering the halls in full 17th century attire, as though inspecting the grounds that carry his name. His apparition is most often reported in the grand ballroom and the corridors overlooking the river. Witnesses describe a tall man bowing politely before vanishing, leaving only the faint scent of tobacco behind. Others claim to hear footsteps pacing outside their rooms in the dead of night, only to find empty hallways stretching into silence. Even creepier are the reports of cold spots in otherwise warm rooms, where guests wake to the feeling of being watched. Some have even seen a shadowy figure sitting at the edge of their bed, silently observing, before fading into the walls. Would you dare spend the night in a room where history itself might sit beside you at the Chateau Frontenac? Luxury and ghostly company seem to go hand in hand. Manoir Papineau, Montebello. In Montebello, a grand 19th century manor sits on a hill overlooking the Ottawa River. This is the Manoir Papineau, once the home of Louis-Joseph Papineau, the fiery politician who led the Patriot Rebellion of 1837. The house stands proud, but whispers say not all its residents left in peace. Visitors touring the manor speak of strange sensations, an icy chill near the staircases, the sound of whispers in French when no one else is nearby, and doors that creak open on their own. Guides recount seeing a figure resembling Papineau himself wandering the library, his presence still tied to the books and speeches that fueled his restless mind. But it is not only Papineau. Some say his wife and children also linger here. A woman in black has been seen gazing out of the upper windows, her face sorrowful, her form dissolving if approached. In the gardens, shadows move against the moonlight, too tall and too human to be tricks of swaying branches. The manor seems alive with memory. Guests describe hearing footsteps pacing overhead when the rooms above are locked. Others feel the brush of unseen hands on their shoulders as they climb the stairs. Imagine walking those narrow corridors, the scent of old wood and candle wax still hanging in the air. Would you stop if you heard a soft voice whisper your name in the dark? Manoir Papineau is more than a relic of political history. It is a house that remembers and refuses to let go. Morrin Centre, Quebec City. In the heart of old Quebec lies a building with a past so layered in darkness, it almost hums with it. Today, it is the Morrin Centre, a cultural hub and library. But once, these walls held criminals, rebels, and the condemned. Built in the early 19th century as a prison, the Morrin Centre saw countless hangings in its courtyard. The cells were damp and suffocating, filled with misery. Later, the building was transformed into a college, and eventually, into the elegant library it is today. But the shadows of its prison years have never lifted. Visitors browsing the shelves sometimes hear the clang of cell doors slamming shut in the distance. Others smell smoke or gunpowder, though none is present. The most disturbing reports come from the basement, where cold drafts sweep through locked rooms and faint cries echo from nowhere. Guides have admitted to avoiding certain corridors after dark, unwilling to face the heavy silence that presses in from the old stone. Some readers claim they have seen ghostly figures moving between the stacks, a fleeting shadow in the corner of their eye, or the shape of a man in prison rags standing silently by a doorway. One legend even tells of a woman dressed in white who lingers on the upper floors, her footsteps soft but endless, circling as if searching for something she never found. Would you sit quietly here, late at night, surrounded by the whispers of books, not knowing if every sound you hear comes from the living? Manoir Mauvide-Genest, Ile d'Orléans. On the quiet Ile d'Orléans, surrounded by the dark sweep of the St. Lawrence River, stands the Manoir Mauvide-Genest, built in 1734 by Jean Mauvide, a surgeon who rose to wealth and influence. The manor seems picturesque by day, but when night falls, the stone walls carry an unease that locals never shake. The house, restored to its colonial grandeur, should feel inviting. Yet visitors often describe a strange heaviness inside, as if the air itself remembers centuries of sorrow. Cold drafts drift through locked rooms. Shadows appear in doorways, then vanish as quickly as they came. Guides whisper of footsteps on the upper floors when no one is allowed upstairs. The most chilling stories, though, involve the figure of a woman. She is seen moving slowly through the halls, dressed in the simple attire of the 18th century, her head lowered as though in mourning. Sometimes she drifts to a window and gazes out toward the river, her form fading into the glass. Others claim to hear her sobbing in the cellar, a sound that seeps through stone and lingers in the ears long after you leave. What grief binds her here? No record explains it, but the manor's long history of hardship and disease offers countless possibilities. Would you dare to stand in those candlelit rooms after midnight, knowing every creak and sigh might be more than the old wood settling on Ile d'Orléans? Beauty hides a weight of memory that refuses to rest. Manoir de Niverville, Trois-Rivières. In Trois-Rivières, the Manoir de Niverville stands as a fragment of New France, its stone walls dating back to 1668. It is one of the oldest surviving manor houses in Quebec, and with its age comes a legacy steeped in mystery. Though restored and maintained as a museum, the manoir carries echoes of a more turbulent time of soldiers, merchants, and families caught between the ambitions of empires. Visitors often speak of sudden drops in temperature inside, so sharp they feel the air being pulled from their lungs. Objects shift in locked rooms, and faint knocks travel through the stone as though from within the walls themselves. The strongest presence is said to be that of a man in military garb, glimpsed pacing near the windows. His figure lingers only for a moment, before disappearing into the shadows. Some guides describe hearing boots scrape across the floors during quiet hours, accompanied by the smell of gunpowder. Even more unsettling are the voices. Tourists report whispers in French that they cannot quite understand, echoing softly in their ears. Others hear laughter too sharp, too sudden, before it dissolves into silence. One chilling account tells of a visitor who felt his arm gripped tightly, though no one stood beside him. Step inside the Manoir de Niverville, and you may feel history close around you, not as a memory, but as a presence, waiting to be acknowledged. Chateau Ramezay, Montreal. In the heart of Old Montreal, facing the city's cobblestone streets, stands the Chateau Ramezay, a grand 18th century residence built in 1705 for Claude de Ramezay, governor of New France. Today, it is a museum, but the past still stirs uneasily within its walls. During its long history, the chateau has seen colonial governors, soldiers, and even revolutionaries pass through its halls. Benjamin Franklin himself once stayed here while attempting to sway Quebec to join the American Revolution. Yet many visitors feel the house never let go of those who came before. Guests touring the dim corridors often describe sudden chills sweeping through the rooms, as if someone invisible has brushed past them. Shadows are seen, drifting across the staircases, too solid to be tricks of the light. Some report hearing the rustle of silk dresses in the salons, though no figures are present. The most chilling stories come from the basement, where the air feels thick and oppressive. Guides whisper that footsteps echo in the vaults, even when they are locked and empty. A pale man in colonial clothing has been spotted in the courtyard at dusk, only to vanish when approached. Others speak of a sorrowful woman's voice humming softly in French, drifting through the rooms like a lullaby with no end. Manoir Fraser, Rivière-du-Loup. Along the banks of the St. Lawrence River, the town of Rivière-du-Loup holds a manor both elegant and unsettling. The Manoir Fraser, built in the 19th century, once belonged to the Fraser family, whose wealth and influence spread across the region. Today, it serves as a museum. But after the crowds leave, the house begins to tell its darker stories. Visitors touring the rooms describe a sudden drop in temperature as they climb the main staircase, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. Guides admit that they often hear faint music drifting from the drawing room piano, keys pressed one by one, though the instrument sits silent and untouched. The most chilling reports speak of a woman dressed in Victorian mourning attire. She has been seen at the top of the stairs, her gaze fixed on the foyer below, her face pale and expressionless. Others have glimpsed her in mirrors, standing just behind them, only for her image to dissolve when they turn around. Some claim she is Madame Fraser herself, mourning the family members lost to illness and tragedy. Others believe she is a different spirit altogether, one tied to the land before the manor even existed. Imagine walking those candlelit halls, the wood creaking softly under your steps, and feeling a cold breath brush your neck. Would you keep walking or run for the door, leaving the echoes of sorrow behind? At Manoir Fraser, the past never lets go. Manoir Richelieu, Charlevoix. Perched high on cliffs overlooking the St. Lawrence, the Manoir Richelieu looks like a castle carved straight out of a dream. Built in 1899 as a luxurious resort, it has welcomed politicians, celebrities, and royalty, but wealth and beauty can't keep the darkness away. One of the most enduring tales here is of a woman in white, seen wandering the halls late at night. Guests describe her as ethereal, her gown trailing across the carpet like mist. She often appears near the elevators or on the grand staircase, but when approached, she vanishes into thin air. Some say she was a bride-to-be who died before her wedding day, returning endlessly to the place she last knew joy. Others report the unsettling sound of children laughing in empty hallways, the sharp echo bouncing off marble floors. Some guests wake to the feeling of someone sitting at the edge of their bed, though no one is there, and staff whisper of entire wings that feel heavy and oppressive after dark, as though the walls themselves are watching. Even outside, the cliffs below the manor carry their own whispers, stories of travelers who fell into the waters, their cries echoing faintly in the wind. Would you spend the night in a room where the sound of footsteps circles your bed, never stopping at Manoir Richelieu? Every luxury is shadowed by something unseen. Manoir Le Boutillier, Gaspé Peninsula. On the far edge of Quebec, where the land meets the Atlantic, stands the Manoir Le Boutillier. Built in 1840 for a wealthy fishing merchant, it was a symbol of prosperity in a rugged place. But behind the elegant facade, the manoir harbors shadows that refuse to leave. Visitors describe the strange sensation of being followed through its long hallways. Doors open with no hand to push them, and windows slam shut in rooms with no breeze. Guides whisper that objects have been moved overnight, and that the house seems to rearrange itself when no one is watching. The most unsettling presence is that of a tall man in period clothing, often seen near the entrance hall. His eyes, witnesses say, are dark and hollow. His expression, one of deep resentment. Some believe he is the spirit of John Le Boutillier himself, restless and dissatisfied, even in death. But there are others. Guests report hearing hushed voices in the dining hall, as though invisible guests are still seated at a long-vanished table. In the bedrooms, the sound of breathing fills the silence, steady and close, as though someone is lying just out of sight. Step into the Manoir Le Boutillier at dusk, when the sea wind howls through the windows, and you may feel it too, the sense that you've crossed into a place where the line between the living and the dead has already blurred. Manoir Montmorency, Montmorency Falls, Quebec City. Just outside Quebec City, overlooking the thundering Montmorency Falls, stands a manor that seems carved out of history itself. The Manoir Montmorency, with its sweeping views and elegant design, was once a summer residence for British governors. But beauty cannot mask the tragedies that have unfolded here. The most enduring legend is that of Matilda, the lady in white. She was the fiancée of a soldier who died in battle during the mid-18th century. Stricken with grief, she put on her wedding dress and walked to the cliffs above the falls. There, she leapt into the roaring water, her life ending in a torrent of foam and rock. Since then, her spirit is said to wander the grounds of the manoir, her white gown trailing behind her like mist, rising from the waterfall. Tourists and staff have seen her drifting along the paths at dusk, her pale figure framed by the spray of the falls. Some even claim to hear her cries in the rush of the water, a wail of eternal grief blending with the thunder of the cascade. Inside the manoir, Cold spots cling stubbornly to certain rooms, and lights flicker as though shaken by an unseen hand. Guests have reported mirrors clouding over suddenly, their reflections replaced by the shadow of a woman in white. Others speak of hearing footsteps on the grand staircase, echoing softly, though no one is there. Would you dare to stand on the cliffs at night, staring into the endless roar of the falls, knowing that a grieving bride may be standing beside you at Manoir Montmorency? The past is never gone. It weeps, it lingers, and it calls. Quebec's castles and manors are more than stone and history. They are vessels of memory, echoes of love, rebellion, betrayal, and grief that never faded. From the glowing towers of Chateau Frontenac to the shadowed cliffs of Manoir Montmorency, each place carries whispers in the walls, waiting for anyone brave enough to listen. So, if you ever find yourself wandering these old corridors or gazing up at their looming facades, remember, beauty can be a mask, and the ghosts of Quebec are always just behind it, watching, waiting, and whispering through the old stone walls. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this chilling journey, don't forget to like, comment with your favorite haunted location, and subscribe for more weekly videos from the shadows.